The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I stood in our backyard, surrounded by the sound of Mark's friends laughing and joking. Something about that evening felt different, though I couldn't explain why. There was a charge in the air that made my pulse quicken. Mark's eyes carried a mischievous glint, and when he announced he had a surprise for everyone, my heart raced with a mix of excitement and unease. As the night settled in, the smell of barbecue lingered in the air and the warmth of the fading sun rested on my skin. It was his birthday, always an event, but this year felt charged with something deeper. When the volleyball game wrapped up, Mark's friends gathered around him, their faces flushed with energy. His gaze locked onto me, and in that instant, I knew I was at the center of whatever he had planned. The group fell quiet as Mark's grin widened. He whispered something to one of his friends, who quickly disappeared into the house. When he returned, he carried a large wrapped box. Mark took my hand and guided me to the middle of the yard, where a small makeshift stage had been set up. Everyone's eyes followed us. My fingers trembled as I pulled at the ribbon, unwrapping the gift. Inside was a karaoke machine. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Mark's eyes told me this was only the beginning. He leaned close, his breath warm against my ear, and whispered, "This is just the start. Tonight, we're going to explore something new." The words sank into me like a secret invitation. It wasn't just about singing. It was about stepping beyond what we knew, about pushing boundaries I hadn't realized were waiting to be crossed. The mood around us shifted, and his friends began chanting my name, urging me to sing. I took the microphone, the weight of expectation pressing down as the first notes filled the air. My voice carried through the night, but under the surface, everything felt charged with a daring new meaning. With every lyric, with every glance from Mark, I understood that this night was more than a celebration, it was the start of something that might change everything I thought I knew about him, and about us. Mark took my hand and led me back into the house. His voice dropped to a whisper, telling me to trust him. We had always built our marriage on trust, but even I knew this moment was different. When he slipped a blindfold over my eyes, my heart began to pound, not just from the darkness, but from the mystery of what was coming next. He guided me onto the living room couch, the fabric cool against my skin in contrast to the warmth of the evening outside. I heard the door open and close, footsteps shifting, soft murmurs I couldn't quite make out. Then came the first kiss, gentle, hesitant, almost testing the waters. My breath caught, and before I could process it, Mark's voice cut through the silence, calm but deliberate, guiding the moment. The atmosphere thickened. I could feel him near, his familiar touch edged with something new, something bold. He whispered encouragements, coaxing me deeper into surrender. Then another sensation followed, different hands, softer, tentative fingers tracing the length of my arm, sending shivers racing through me. Mark leaned in, his voice soothing yet commanding. "Just relax. Let go." His words wrapped around me like a spell, urging me to stop resisting and simply feel. The kisses multiplied, layered, each one carrying its own rhythm. Every brush of lips, every breath against my skin seemed to build upon the last, weaving a tapestry of sensations that both unsettled and freed me. I realized then that his friends weren't only watching. They were part of this carefully orchestrated experience, each movement deliberate, each touch designed to heighten what I felt. The blindfold sharpened everything else, the scent of cologne mingling with smoky barbecue from outside, the sound of uneven breathing close by, the heat radiating from nearby bodies. In that moment, the world outside ceased to exist. There was only the darkness behind the blindfold, the chorus of sensations around me, and Mark's hand squeezing mine, his silent reminder that I was still his, even as he pushed me into uncharted territory. Mark's voice cut through the haze of sensation. "Are you ready for more, Alice?" he asked, his tone carrying both a challenge and an invitation. My emotions swirled, fear, excitement, disbelief, yet I found myself nodding. I trusted him, even though this trust was now being stretched to places I had never imagined. The room seemed to vibrate with tension. Under Mark's steady guidance, his friends came to me one by one. Each kiss was unique, some tentative, some bold, each touch sparking a new reaction within me. It felt like Mark was conducting a symphony, his voice steady and deliberate, weaving every gesture into a larger composition. Then his words came, unexpected yet certain, "I'm going to record this. It's a moment we'll want to remember." The sound of the camera starting was sharp, almost like another heartbeat in the silence. My breath caught. This was no longer just a fleeting game, it was becoming a memory he intended to preserve. As the night unfolded, what had begun with kisses deepened into something far more intimate. Guided by Mark, his friends explored me in ways that were overwhelming, even frightening at moments, but also strangely liberating. Blindfolded, I couldn't see them, yet every touch seemed magnified, every sensation sharper. And then the realization struck me like a wave. I was in my own living room, surrounded not by strangers but by men Mark knew, men he had invited. 26 of them, and he wasn't resisting, wasn't stopping it. He was orchestrating every step, standing at the center of it all as both my husband and my director. The air grew heavy with anticipation. Hands traced along my skin like notes in a melody, each one building on the last until the room seemed to hum with a rhythm of its own. My body responded, trembling under the weight of it all, while Mark's voice was my anchor, soft, reassuring, always there. "You're doing wonderfully, Alice," he whispered, his words grounding me even as everything else spun wildly out of control. Through the blindfold, the world had become nothing but sound, touch, and feeling. Mark's hand found mine again, squeezing firmly, reminding me of his presence, reminding me this was still his design. Each new sensation layered upon the last, creating a crescendo that was both terrifying and freeing. What once felt like chaos was now unfolding as part of an intimate, deliberate journey, one that Mark had not only imagined but carefully planned. The blindfold never left my face, but instead of isolating me, it awakened every other sense. I could smell the faint trace of cologne mingling with the smoky aroma of barbecue still drifting in from outside. I heard the shifts in breathing, the quiet shuffle of movement around me, and felt the undeniable heat of bodies drawing close. The world outside ceased to exist, everything narrowed to this room, this moment, this experience. Mark's voice reached me again, low and steady. "Are you ready for more, Alice?" His words carried the weight of a challenge but also the tenderness of an invitation. Despite the storm of emotions inside me, I nodded, surrendering to his guidance. Whatever this was, he was leading me through it, and I chose to follow. The night seemed to move in waves, a rhythm that was both strange and familiar. Under Mark's direction, his friends pushed further, touches became bolder, kisses deeper, every new sensation daring me to let go of the limits I once believed unshakable. The room itself felt charged, alive with shared desire, every breath and movement weaving together into a tapestry that was as thrilling as it was overwhelming. I felt myself being pulled deeper, caught in something I never imagined could happen. My own boundaries stretched and shifted with every moment, my resistance giving way to something raw and unexpected. Through it all, Mark's voice remained my anchor, steady, reassuring, coaxing me into surrender. "Just let go," he whispered, his words dissolving the last threads of control I tried to hold onto. The camera's soft hum reminded me that every sigh, every touch, every fleeting sound was being captured. It wasn't only happening, it was being preserved, a permanent memory of this strange, daring night. The thought should have frightened me, but instead it felt like a strange kind of testament to trust, to surrender, to the bond between us. As the evening deepened, so did the experience. What began in shock shifted into something more profound. The fear and uncertainty melted into an unexpected connection, not just with Mark, but with those he brought into this moment. Somehow it felt personal and shared at once, as if the room itself had become part of our story. A question echoed silently in my mind as the night unfolded: how would this change us? Would it bring Mark and me closer together, or would it leave cracks too deep to mend? The uncertainty pressed against me as heavily as the touch of the next man, his kiss gentle yet charged with an unspoken promise. Through it all, Mark never left my side. His voice guided me like a compass in the darkness, his hand a reminder of our bond. At one point, he leaned close and whispered, "You're beautiful, Alice." The words wrapped around me like a warm embrace, grounding me even as everything else blurred together. The night became a cascade of sensations, each one adding another brushstroke to the strange canvas our relationship was becoming. Boundaries that once felt solid were shifting. Every kiss, every touch redrew the lines of what I thought I knew about us, and about myself. Mark's presence was constant. He directed, encouraged, and documented everything with quiet precision. The intimacy of it all was unlike anything I had ever known, at once terrifying and liberating, a collision of vulnerability and power I hadn't expected to feel. Finally, as the last of his friends slipped out of the room, the energy shifted. Mark stepped forward and gently removed the blindfold. Light flooded in, blinding me at first, and when my eyes adjusted, I found him staring at me. His gaze was filled with excitement, but also something deeper, something I couldn't yet name. In his hand was the camera. Look at what we've created, Alice, he said softly. On the screen, I saw myself, blindfolded, surrounded, at the center of everything. My chest tightened as emotions crashed over me all at once. Shock, disbelief, but also an odd surge of pride, even exhilaration. The recording showed it all. Every touch, every breath, every whispered word of encouragement from Mark. Watching the screen felt surreal. It was like seeing a performance, yet I was the one at the center, captured in the most intimate of settings, exploring boundaries I never knew I had. Mark's hand rested warmly on my shoulder, grounding me as I struggled to process it all. You were incredible, he whispered, his voice rich with admiration. He spoke of trust, of pushing limits, of sharing something unforgettable together. My eyes stayed fixed on the recording, unable to look away. There I was, surrounded, touched, guided, all of it preserved with a clarity that made my heart pound. The realization of what we had just done was overwhelming. Could I ever see Mark in the same way again? The question echoed within me, lingering over the images before me. Mark's friends, who had once been little more than acquaintances, were now woven into the fabric of our most private memory. That knowledge alone sent a shiver through me. Yet Mark's presence beside me, steady, comforting, charged with the energy of the night, kept me anchored. This isn't just about tonight, he said softly, his voice threading through the hum of the recorded images. It's about our journey, about exploring each other, about trust, about love in its fullest form. On the screen, I saw myself surrendering, letting go under his guidance, carried along by the rhythm of his direction. Each frame became a testament to the depth of our connection, to the risks we had taken together, and to the trust that held it all. My emotions tangled, confusion, exhilaration, fear, but also a rising sense of empowerment. Mark had always been my anchor, but tonight he had also been my guide into uncharted territory. He paused the video then, turning toward me with an expression stripped bare of everything but sincerity. I want you to know, Alice, this was as much for you as it was for me. I needed you to see how much you mean to me, how deeply I trust you, how much I believe in us. His words calmed the storm inside me, soothing the questions that had threatened to unravel me. As I looked into his eyes, I saw not only the man I had married but a partner daring to redefine what intimacy between us could be. The night had changed us, that much was undeniable. And whether it brought us closer or reshaped us entirely, I knew nothing between us would ever be the same. As I sat there, the remnants of the night still lingering in my body and mind, I realized this wasn't an ending at all, it was a beginning. Mark had created more than a night of physical exploration, he had opened a door into uncharted emotional territory. Yes, this experience would change how we saw each other. But maybe that was the point. Perhaps, in this new light, we would see one another more clearly, more deeply than ever before. The trust we had built, the boundaries we had crossed, the moments we had shared, these were now part of our story, a chapter that could never be erased. As the video screen went dark, I leaned against Mark, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Thank you, I whispered. The words were not just for the night, but for the journey we had begun together, one that would shape us in ways I was only starting to understand. The night had blurred into a whirl of sensations, but its meaning was sharp. Our relationship had shifted into something new, something profound. And in that quiet aftermath, sitting together in the dim glow of our living room, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it together, with open hearts and a different understanding of love. The morning after, the silence in our home was striking, a stark contrast to the intensity of the night before. I sat at the kitchen table, sunlight stretching long shadows across the floor, a cup of coffee warming my hands. Mark joined me, his presence calm yet still charged with the electricity of everything we had experienced. He placed a small USB drive on the table between us. This is it, he said softly, almost reverently. My chest tightened as he explained it contained the video from the night before. Anticipation and apprehension tangled within me as I stared at it. Then he pulled me close, his arm wrapping around my shoulders, his breath warm against my ear as he pressed play. The video flickered to life. There I was again, blindfolded, the center of it all. The room filled with faint murmurs of encouragement, the subtle rustle of clothing, and the thick hum of shared desire. Watching it was like reliving the night from the outside, yet feeling every pulse of memory from within. Every touch, every kiss was captured in vivid detail, the camera moving with an intimacy that made my skin tingle even in memory. Watching myself on the screen, I wasn't only a participant, I was the architect of my own desires, gently guided by Mark's vision. The truth settled in me slowly but firmly, I had enjoyed it. Not just the physical closeness, but the freedom, the chance to test my own boundaries, and the trust it all required. Mark's excitement was unmistakable, and seeing it reflected back at me filled me with an unexpected thrill. The video revealed moments where I had surrendered completely, allowing myself to let go under his careful guidance. Each frame became proof of our connection, of the trust we had dared to stretch, of the lines we had willingly crossed together. As the video played, I could feel Mark's breath quicken beside me, his hand closing around mine with a quiet reassurance. "You were incredible," he whispered, his voice full of admiration. This wasn't just about pleasure, it was about trust, about pushing limits, about sharing something together that we'll never forget. On the screen, I saw myself surrounded by his friends, each moment captured with startling clarity, every interaction adding to the weight of what had taken place. My heart raced as I realized the depth of it all, the gravity of letting them become part of such an intimate chapter of our lives. They were no longer just acquaintances, they were now permanently tied to the private corners of our story. Mark paused the video and turned to me, his eyes steady, his expression earnest. "Alice," he said softly, "this was as much for you as it was for me. I wanted to show you how much you mean to me, how much I trust you, how deeply I believe in us." His words sank into me like a balm, soothing the chaos of my thoughts. When I looked into his eyes, I didn't just see the man I had married, I saw a partner brave enough to redefine what intimacy could mean. The night had changed us, and I couldn't deny it. But as I sat there, with the memory of every moment still fresh in my veins, I knew this wasn't an end. It was the start of something new. Mark hadn't only crafted an experience of physical daring, he had drawn us into a space of emotional exploration. Would this change how we saw each other? Yes, without question. That evening shifted the very core of our marriage. For the first time, I felt as though I truly saw Mark, saw the risks he was willing to take, the boundaries he dared to challenge, all for the sake of us. In that moment, it was no longer just about what had happened, but what it meant. We weren't simply husband and wife anymore, we had become partners in an unspoken pact of trust, vulnerability, and desire. When the screen went black, I leaned against him, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and whispered a quiet, "Thank you." It wasn't only gratitude for the night we had shared, but for the journey we were beginning together. The morning light seemed softer, almost as though the world itself had changed with us. His arm around me felt like both a shield and a promise. Whatever came next, I knew we would face it side by side. In the days that followed, the memory of that night stayed with us, not as something shameful or hidden, but as a new and vibrant piece of our story. We talked about it openly, letting those conversations become the foundation of a deeper intimacy. One evening over dinner, I looked at Mark and admitted, with a trembling kind of honesty, that I loved it, that I wanted more. His eyes sparkled, and I saw in them a reflection of my own hunger. From then on, our marriage carried a new rhythm. We laughed more, teased each other, whispered daring ideas we never would have spoken aloud before. Fantasies once buried began to surface. It felt like a door had been unlocked, one that led us into a version of ourselves we hadn't dared to explore. One quiet Sunday as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Mark leaned toward me with that mischievous grin I had come to recognize. His voice was low, deliberate, as he reminded me of my own words, that I wanted more. My heart fluttered in my chest, caught between nerves and excitement, as I realized we were standing at the edge of yet another adventure, together. He guided me with a calm certainty, his voice steady and reassuring as though he knew exactly how to lead me through the unknown. "Just let go," he whispered, the words pressing against me like a gentle embrace. I surrendered, letting the night unfold with its strange rhythm, unfamiliar yet somehow comforting. We moved with others, each encounter carefully balanced between curiosity and consent, a silent dance where every step was both daring and deliberate. With every touch and every kiss, I could feel the edges of our relationship shifting, the boundaries we once thought unbreakable quietly redrawn. Through it all, Mark never left me adrift. His voice was always there, sometimes firm, sometimes soft, sometimes only a breath near my ear, but always anchoring me. His presence gave me courage, his encouragement made me feel seen. The intimacy of that night was unlike anything I had ever known. It carried vulnerability, yes, but also a strange power, as if in surrendering I was discovering a deeper part of myself. It wasn't just about pleasure, it was about connection, trust, and the thrill of stepping beyond the safe lines we had drawn for so long. The night stretched on, weaving us into a world we had once only dared to imagine. Every moment felt heightened, as if the air itself pulsed with possibility. What had started as an experiment between two curious lovers became something much deeper, a breaking down of walls we hadn't even realized were holding us back. When it finally ended, and the lights softened back into the quiet glow of dawn, Mark and I found ourselves wrapped in each other's arms. No words were needed, the silence spoke louder than any declaration. It was in his steady heartbeat, in the way his hand lingered at my back, in the quiet exhale of contentment that told me we had stepped into uncharted territory together and survived it, stronger. In the days that followed, we carried the memory of that night not as a secret shame but as a vivid spark that seemed to live between us. Our conversations shifted, bolder, more open, without fear of judgment. We asked questions, confessed fantasies, and admitted truths we had long kept hidden. Trust wasn't just maintained, it deepened, transformed into something unshakable. Looking back, I realized it wasn't about the strangers, the thrill, or even the novelty of crossing boundaries. It was about what it unlocked in us, the courage to be honest, the freedom to be vulnerable, and the strength to let go of who we thought we had to be. The adventure had changed us, but more importantly, it had connected us. The journey ahead remained uncertain, filled with questions of how far we might go, or what desires we might explore next. But in that uncertainty, I found comfort. Because I knew, no matter what came, we would face it together, with open hearts, steady hands, and a love reborn through fire. That night was not the end of a story, but the beginning of a new chapter. One written not out of fear, but out of freedom. And in that freedom, we found each other all over again. What began as a daring step into forbidden territory turned into a powerful journey of discovery. Alice and Mark crossed boundaries they had once feared, but instead of tearing them apart, the experience revealed hidden truths about trust, vulnerability, and desire. By opening themselves to new possibilities, they learned that real intimacy is not just about physical closeness but about honesty, courage, and connection. In the end, the affair with temptation did not destroy their bond, it reshaped it. The story reminds us that infidelity, in its many forms, often forces people to confront what lies beneath the surface of their relationships. Some may find healing, while others may face heartbreak. For Alice and Mark, it was the beginning of a deeper, more fearless love, but it also left lingering questions about how far such freedom could go before it crossed a line that could never be undone. This story is a work of fiction created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or places is purely coincidental. The narrative explores themes of relationships, intimacy, and infidelity in a fictional context and should not be interpreted as factual or instructional. Viewer discretion is advised, as the content may not be suitable for all audiences. The creators do not promote, encourage, or endorse infidelity or any form of unethical behavior in real life. Thank you for taking the time to follow this emotional and daring journey with us. Stories like this remind us how fragile love, trust, and desire can be, and how the choices we make shape the paths of our relationships. If you found this story engaging, we encourage you to stay connected with us for more real-life inspired infidelity tales filled with passion, betrayal, and lessons that speak to the heart. Your support means everything, so don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Every reaction helps us bring more stories your way, stories that uncover the hidden sides of love, temptation, and human connection. See you in our next story, another journey filled with emotions, secrets, and twists you won't forget.